Hey, howdy, hey. Welcome to Move Early, Move Often Chat with Dr. Thomas Karakolis and me.
When you start with hey, howdy, hey, it makes it really difficult to go into an intellectual conversation. But let's try this,
Uh,
Blake.
uh, Come on. So today we want to discuss the importance of activity as we age. And
Yes.
there's a variety of different perspectives on this, and we mentioned it a little bit in last week's session when we were discussing the difference between activity and exercise. But um, the thing, Thomas, I guess that as you've looked at degenerative conditions and things like that um, uh, in your own work, just kind of seeing how even sitting can cause degeneration. Eh, Have you seen how that kind of inactivity impacts people over lifespan?
Definitely. So I'm just gonna try and maybe take a step back really quickly here, and let's talk about the goals of healthy aging. And by that I mean,
Oh, well,
what are
yeah.
what are we trying to do when we age? And
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
thinking of, so Peter Attia's got a great podcast on aging, and that's kind of his whole domain and his expertise. And his goal, I think he stated before, that he wants to live to 100 years old, but he doesn't just want to live to 100 years old. He wants to be able to complete a certain set of tasks or activities of daily living. And I think one of them is something simple, like he just wants to be able to go from being on the ground to standing up without any sort of pain or excessive amount of effort. So I think the first thing we have to do is kind of define what are the goals of healthy aging. So before I answer your question, Blake, I'm just going to throw one right back at you. What are your goals for aging?
Yeah, wow. That's fantastic. So I love what you were saying about being able to get from the floor to standing. That's like I have specific movement goals. If we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
movement, I'd like to be able to I'd like to be able to stand up and walk around as I age on my own power. I'd like to be able to I'd probably like to be able to dance, and I'm not sure what that means, but it means some kind of movement to rhythm or music. Um, I would like to be able to put on my own clothes as I get quite a bit older. Um, I don't do that now, but
Yeah,
I'm
but
hoping it's going to come
eventually you'd like to be able to
with
do
age.
it.
Yeah. Um,
Uh,
no, but seriously, as I think about if we're saying live to 100, if I'm imagining living to 100, I'd like to be able to put on my own clothes at 100.
mhm.
I'd like, be able to button my shirt,
Bathe
um,
yourself.
bathe myself, yeah, feed myself. Like
Hmm.
so if we're looking at all that stuff, it's very much activities of daily living, but with exuberance or expression or exploration
Well,
or fun. What about you? What would you like to
knowing
be able
you,
to?
I'm gonna add really quickly that I think dancing, since you do have a career as a professional dancer, that to me that probably seems like something that is an activity of daily living for you.
It is.
I don't imagine you go very often without dancing.
There's a lot of dance in our house.
Yeah.
A lot of dance.
So for me, I think very similar to your goals, Blake, to be honest with you. I don't dance very often, to tell you the truth, so that's not really a goal of mine, but I would like to be able to go for a walk, for
Right.
example, hopefully for a couple of kilometers, not just to the end of my street and back, but
Yeah.
just be able to continue to explore the world and not. So I guess more broadly, and I know we're trying to get a little more specific, but anything that allows me to explore the world without being reliant on somebody else or a piece of technology. So the big things for me
Yeah.
are walking.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to walk pain free, and then also, yeah, being able to get up off the floor, getting in and out of a chair, sitting on the
Yeah.
couch is something that I think I'd like to continue to be able to do. So those are things. So now, if we're going to go back, and I'll try and answer your question now, Blake, but through my research and just through the stuff that I've seen and read, obviously, yeah, we all know, and it's intuitive that as we age, we do have degenerative types of issues, especially in the spine, like intervertebral disc degeneration is a huge problem. Probably causes chronic back pain in the majority of people that experience chronic back pain. So these are the types of musculoskeletal disorders, let's call them, rather than specifically injuries, that we're really trying to prevent, avoid, procrastinate. I'm not sure what the perfect word for that is, but yeah, these are the goals that we're trying to accomplish in order for us to be able to age the way we want to.
Yeah. Was the word you were looking for, was it maybe forestall?
Yeah, oh,
Good.
forestall, that's a good
Ah,
word.
that's a good word. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. And I agree exactly with what you're saying there. I think that we're trying to stave off this aging process, and there's certain things that we know that happen as people age. A couple of interesting ones. Well, one really interesting one that's bizarre to me. Um, the base of support, people tend to take their feet and they move them inward and they don't step as far. And oddly enough, like that you would say, you might say, okay, that kind of makes sense because people are afraid. But when our base of support is more narrow and when we're afraid to step further, we have a greater likelihood of falling. And so it's this kind of you're afraid to have a wider base of support or to make larger steps or larger excursions with your feet. And but the bad consequence of that is that you end up being at greater risk for falls because um, just because when your base of support is smaller, you fall down. We stop stepping to the side and we stop stepping backwards as we get older. These are things that we lose. We kind of progressively remove them from our movement repertoires. And so, I think goals of activity for us as we age need to be things that help us to continue to explore the movement space around us so that we're not just stuck in one spot. So we're both trying to maintain these movements of daily life, but I think we're being aware that they're not just moving forward in a straight line. We're moving side to side, increasing the base of support, improving our ability to move nimbly from side to side and backwards.
Yeah, there are a couple things to kind of build off, and I'm going to base this, and I guess all of our discussions are kind of surrounded on the premise that our memo sessions are something that we're really excited about and that we're trying to promote because we think that our memo sessions kind of address, and this is the Monday through Friday daily movement sessions that we post on the channel, but we're thinking they're trying to address everything that you just talked about, Blake, and I think in my mind as you were speaking, I was able to frame it almost into two different types of things that we're trying to address. There's a musculoskeletal system from like a biological tissue perspective that we want to try and avoid degeneration in our musculoskeletal tissues so that we don't have essentially like old decrepit tissues that we think of when we
Yeah,
think of elderly people. But then the other part of it that we really also have to be mindful of is our motor control.
yeah,
And a lot of the stuff you talked about, especially with the balance and then the moving into your side space versus just in that same anterior posterior, like front and back plane that we talk about, those, a lot of the stuff that we really have to focus on as we age is not just trying to avoid tissue degeneration after we reach musculoskeletal maturity, but also we want to make sure that we don't lose a lot of our motor control abilities as we age. And in order not to lose them, we have to continue to practice them and continue to challenge them, right?
yeah, absolutely. And that brings up an important point and something that I think that we could look at for its own memo chat is this whole idea of the relationship between our ability to think about stuff and our ability to do stuff.
Hmm.
There's it's quite fascinating that in a lot of the neuromuscular degenerative disorders, things like multiple sclerosis and ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and Parkinson's disease, that in addition to the motor degeneration, that there's also an associated cognitive degeneration. And fascinatingly, one of the things that they're finding for people in these conditions where they're trying to improve both their motor health and their mental health is the use of dance, in particular
Hmm.
salsa, Argentinian tango, and a whole bunch of different dance forms, but also Qigong and Tai Chi have been explored. And so these movement practices, they actually make people more resilient and resistant to falls, but they also improve their mental health and they improve their cognition. So I don't think that, like, in as much as yes, we're trying to get that neuromuscular control part, we're also trying to keep the inactivity part at bay, keep the muscles good and healthy. But there's also this aspect to which, or respect, in which our bodies are our minds. They're inextricably linked. The way we think and the way we move, they are connected in these very profound ways. And so if I want to keep my mind agile and loose as I age, I'm also going to work on keeping my body agile and loose as I age. Um, I want to age well. I'm planning on getting a whole lot older, and
Yep.
so I want to start now thinking about how can I be old in a fantastic way, and so that as I'm pushing up over, the next decade boundary, that I'm going to be strong and I'm going to be healthy and ready to move.
There's just so much to unpack with what you just said there, and I wish we had unlimited amounts of time to do this. But in order to keep these brief, I'll just make a few quick last comments and then throw it back to you, Blake.
Sure.
But first of all, love it every time you say I'm planning on getting old or I'm planning on aging, and that expression I think is fantastic. I'm not going to touch the stuff that you talked about in terms of the connection between mental health, cognitive abilities, because I think looking at our list, we are planning on speaking about that.
Sure.
If not next week, in a few weeks' time. So we will have a whole chat on that link. But the idea that I just kept going through my head as you were speaking, and I couldn't get it out, is um, the idea of we need to plan to get older, and what we do today is what's going to determine how we are when
Yeah.
we're old
Yeah.
and as we age. And so this is why I love the daily movement sessions. Again, I can't keep saying how much I like them, because they form these habits that if we continue them throughout our lifespans, as we age, we're going to be able to maintain what we have right now, and we're going to be able to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish when we're older. So, as much as I just enjoy seeing you every morning for the daily movement sessions, part of the reason why I really like doing them is because I feel like I am forming these habits,
Yeah.
and I'm doing the work right now so that I will be able to accomplish the goals that I want in the future.
I think you wrapped it up beautifully, Thomas. I don't think there's a lot else to be said there. I think the whole idea is, we're moving early in our lives so we can move often in our lives and continue
Exactly.
and continue
I
moving
love
often.
it.
Yeah. So,
Well
like how that
done.
metaphor just kind of extended into
I
our whole
loved it.
lives.
I loved it. So hopefully we'll start seeing everybody every morning for the move early, move often
I
memo
hope so.
sessions.
I hope
Me
so.
too. All
All
right,
right.
Blake.
Have a great evening, Thomas.
You too.